Hey everybody, Will here, and today I am here with the desk. And if you're wondering what the balloons are about, that is because we are approaching the desk's 10th birthday. And it would have been 10 years ago that I was working in my parents' garage, preparing to head into my sophomore year of college and my very first unfurnished apartment. And that's actually where this idea came from. I actually just needed a desk, and this was right around the time I was kind of growing my interest in computers. And I just thought, how cool would it be if I built my own desk and also there was a computer in the surface of it. So that's how the desk came to be, and it's been with me now for 10 years. And at this point, it's really starting to show its age. You can see there's a ton of marks and scrapes and scratches on the outside, some bent knobs as well from all the moves the thing has gone through. This plexiglass topper just covered with scratches, big scratches, and you can see where the mouse is, there's just a ton of these tiny little scratches that makes it pretty much just foggy white. Inside too, there's a number of scrapes and cracks and stuff like that from all the different components that have been upgraded and switched in and out over the years. This machine actually started out as my parents' fairly new Dell pre-built system, and they ended up giving it to me for college, and I actually just took it apart, not really knowing too much about computers, and looking at the case and looking at all the parts that needed to be there and how they mount, and then began building this case. During that time, obviously since then, it's been upgraded a bunch of times. Pretty quickly, I upgraded it to a Pentium D system. My very first system that I built was an early Pentium D, and then that processor got upgraded to a newer Pentium D before the whole thing got replaced again with a Core 2 quad system. And then that got replaced in the video that I did 4 years ago on this channel, which involved replacing the whole system with a new i7 920 system. That makes actually, by the way, the i7 system the longest I've had a single set of parts in this machine at once. And at this point, the inside is also beginning to really show its age. Just to kind of let you understand what sort of situation I'm in now. I did a test for the $1,300 build at Snap Judgment, the $1,300 build versus the $2,800 build. And that really quickly was about 40 minutes of footage from our live show, which is quite effects heavy, a number of different camera sources. On the $2,800 build, it took 2 hours and 37 minutes, and that was on an Intel 3930K, so still one of the best processors you can buy. And then on the $1,300 build, that was an AMD FX 9590, that took 4 hours and 37 minutes. And then I just did it on this machine as well, the same exact export. It took this thing, which has a i7 920, it took 6 hours and 43 minutes. So that's quite a bit longer, and it's actually not that's the problem. I'd be happy to finish a project, hit render, and if it takes 2, 3, 4 extra hours, even occasionally a render fails, not a big deal. Restart a render, it's gonna take more time. The biggest problem is just working in the editing session with this. And just to show you really quickly, I'll show you the project that sort of broke the camel's back here. This project that I'm gonna show you right now is a prop test for the DJI Phantom. If you've seen these sort of things, like a battery test or a prop test, people film their Phantom, it takes off, it's a stationary camera, it just kind of time lapses it until it lands, and you gotta see how long they last. I thought I would do something a little bit more interesting. I thought I would do some sort of multicam situation, recording a bunch of angles and then edit it. And I was trying to edit it a week and a half ago, and I was really just going crazy using this thing. Just to show you really quick, the multicam I ended up with was this right here. And if you look here, you can see all this blue. This is the whole day. I had a couple cameras on pretty much the whole day. And then these moments is where I have them all just for the tests. And just in case you're curious, the blue is what the pluralized successfully synced, and the stuff that's in purple is stuff that I had to manually go in and sync afterwards. But you can see it's a lot of footage. Definitely not something that the normal person would be doing. I'm asking a lot of the machine, but it is not delivering, as you're about to see. If I go to the actual sequence that I'm working on, here's that multicam. It's only at 100%. You only see one clip right now. This is the Canon T2i footage. And it looks fine, it works fine. No, not a problem. I can even go high speed and it does no problem. But the problem is when I want to work with a multicam, first of all, and if I pull up a multicam right now, let's say I want to do some multicam editing. First of all, it's going to take a minute to open. There we go. And so we have, here we have the multicam. You can see all the different streams of video. And if I go ahead and hit play, and then you know how multicamming works, you pretty much just click it to do a live cut. There we go. There we go, about 2 seconds before they start dropping considerable frames. Not a single one of them is playing smoothly. Multicam right now is just not an option, at least for this project. And just to tell you real quick, it's not so much the multicam. Like if I can't live with the multicam, that's sort of okay, I can work around it, although multicam's great. If I show you really quickly, the biggest problem is actually things like GoPro footage, which is a little bit more difficult than most things to do. If I move really quickly, this is a piece of GoPro footage, and I like to shoot in 2.7K. Otherwise, this is just the raw footage from the camera, and if I hit play real quick, three seconds, playing fine. Okay, so 3 seconds, playing, no problem, and then we pretty quickly move into, you know, a half a frame a second or a frame a second or something like that, and then it's not really watchable after a couple seconds. So pretty much what I've been doing is throwing them in the timeline. You know, I set up a project and I throw them all the things that I'm going to throw in a timeline. I kind of eyeball it to get, this is the part of the clip I'm interested in, and then I'll render it. I'll render a preview and then just work with the preview. And then once you're kind of getting into the nitty gritty, you have to make edits, move your work area, and just kind of work like that. And that's not ideal. This is basically me working on a project that is not really acceptable for this machine anymore. So at this point, I very simply cannot deal with this anymore. And I don't like to do this, but I had this sort of grand plan that in the next year and a half or so, or 2 years, I was going to build a completely new desk, and that was going to be packed with like my dream hardware, and it was going to be great, and it's still going to be great. I'm still going to do it. But at this point, I just can't wait that long. And even if I could afford it, even if I had everything in line to do it right now, I can't wait the 2 months it's going to take to build it with this thing. It's just too slow for me. I just need to upgrade it, and I need that to happen right now, and that's what's about to happen. So that's what this video is about. I'm going to upgrade it. I just got, a week ago, I ordered the parts in a rage, and now I'm here about to install them. But before we start with that, I thought I would bring up one question that I've received quite a bit of in the past month or so. And people are wondering what my thoughts are on a new product made by Lian Li. And let me really quickly show you what that product is. That's Lian Li's newest creation, their newest case, the DK02. It's one of them, there's a number of them. But that's something that Lian Li recently announced, and people are wondering what my thoughts are on it. And I gotta say, it's kind of weird because I received a lot of messages over the years from numerous people. Some people were pointing my attention to other ones because they wanted me to see it. A lot of other great desks, people have done this idea. I'm pretty sure I didn't steal the idea. I'm pretty sure I really just came to it. And I don't think there's many, I think there's like a TIE Fighter desk that might have been built before mine, but I actually think it was revealed mid me building mine. But I've received a lot of messages. Some people have built similar things and thanked me for inspiring them, and you know, other ones I've just seen that have come up. And actually, a lot of my reactions to some of these they're really cool. I see them, and again, when I built this, this is the very first thing from scratch I ever built. It's very rough around the edges. I've learned so much from having it, not just for 10 years, but the first month I had it, I realized some mistakes I've made and how I could do things better. And so I'm looking at some of these other ones, which are made by kind of, certainly at my level at the time, more skilled craftsmen than me. It's just really well done, and a lot of them are really, really great. And so it's weird because I've always been wondering what's it gonna look like the day a major PC component manufacturer takes it on, and what's it gonna look like? And looking at this one, I've never seen one that looked more closely like mine than this one, I think. I don't know, am I wrong? It's interesting. Actually, the weird thing is the things that I see that are like mine, I consider to be mistakes. I really do. Things like the width of the case. You see, the reason I chose it to make it this thick was not a very good reason. It was because I wanted to be able to fit all the components of a computer similarly to how they would in a real case, which meant putting the optical drives vertically like this, but that just makes it unnecessarily large. I could easily, you know, the maximum height, if you get rid of that, is going to be your graphics card, and you gotta add a little bit for the actual structure of the desk. But the problem is with this the way it is, you know, you can see your thighs are gonna be kind of against it, and it might be a little bit higher than it has to be, you know, it's ergonomically speaking. I'm very much used to it, but that's gonna be something that you're gonna see in the new desk. It's not gonna be that thick. And I consider that to be a mistake. And they've kind of gotten around that by having this keyboard tray situation on the front of it, which to me is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of a little bit of a cop-out. I think the cool part to me is to have, again, the surface of the desk be your surface of a desk. And you have your mouse and your keyboard, and like, here's my mouse, and underneath it is the computer system. This kind of makes me think it's more like a desk with a gigantic computer sitting on top of it with like a little bit of desk space. Or, you know, you can definitely use the space, I can see that. But it's just kind of a weird choice to do. Another problem I had with my desk that I've discovered working again on a ton of different desks, like normal desks, in like schools, not computer desks, but I mean not school desks, but like, you know, actual working desks in universities and offices and things like that. I decided to make my desk the size I did because I didn't know where to buy plexiglass. I pretty much have only seen it in Home Depot. I didn't know of like plastic stores. And the largest size they had was 2 foot by 4 foot. And so that's why the desk is 2 feet by 4 feet. Not the best reason to make your desk that size. And again, I wish it was bigger. I've thought of making an extension to my desk. And again, looking at these, I think this is the bigger one. They seem so small, and they kind of look like little task desks as opposed to, again, something really cool, nice piece of furniture. And I think that's kind of fundamentally where they went wrong. I think what they decided to do, it's a risk, and I certainly applaud them for taking the chance, assuming they didn't look at mine a bunch before doing it and not contact me. But also, I think that I think they decided, okay, we're gonna do this. There's no way, the market for this is very small. We're gonna have to get as many people as possible to wanna buy these, and they're gonna have to go after as many people as possible. And so they did make it smaller. They kind of geared it more towards like a little gaming booth. Than a desk with a computer in it, because that's how they're going to sell the most, and I think that's their audience. And I think that was sort of, I don't want to say a mistake, I think it's probably a smart move, but it makes it something that I wouldn't want. It's, again, just too small, and again, I imagine it being not so much somebody's desk. Again, it's somebody's like game, it's like when you go into someone's house and see like an arcade thing in the corner. It's, I imagine that these are going to be in the corner of someone's living room or the corner of someone's bedroom or maybe in their office next to the desk that they actually do work on. I think they compromised it a little bit too much, and I don't think it's very good. I don't know what to say. Here we go. The one good thing is actually putting the whole desk on a drawer. I gotta say, here we go. That's a good idea. I mean, I have this, but I didn't do it on this side. But no, and it's actually, that's a good idea. The weird thing is too, it's a desk, but there's no, like, I don't want to say it has to have a drawer like this, but I kind of expect it to be more, it really is just, it's a computer. It's a computer on like IKEA legs that they attach to the side of it and put it on its side. It's just a giant like double tower case or something like that. I don't like it. I'm sorry, Lian Li. Lian Li actually makes fine, high-quality products. I don't know. Just call me next time, Lian Li. That's all you have to do. Anyway, on to the build. I shut down the system and began preparing it to receive its new parts. A build inspired by my recent experience with the Snap Judgment $1,300 build. With the processor people said I should have chosen over the FX 9590, the FX 8350 at its heart. This budget upgrade makes this far from a top-of-the-line system, but coming in at well under $1,000, it should at least keep me hobbling along until the looming The Desk 2.0 upgrade. It's right about now that I'd bust out the air compressor to free up some of the caked-on dust from the case, but considering it's upstairs now, with my power dusting a success, I began to take apart the system, starting with unplugging all the cables. Then I moved on to the PCI cards. Unfortunately, there's little to be saved from this old system. My old Blackmagic Intensity card didn't see much use, an old TV tuner, worthless now that I don't have TV. The GeForce 560 Ti doesn't contribute much in terms of its CUDA performance. The 8-channel Areca RAID card, on the other hand, will be saved, along with its 6-drive RAID 10 that makes up my editing array. However, the Creative Audigy 2 sound card is obsolete, and the old Zotac 9800 GT that allowed me to have a 3rd and 4th monitor will no longer be needed, since now most GPUs can support that on their own. And then the old motherboard. Unfortunately, the old 1366 socket is obsolete, along with the Intel i7-920. So together they will accompany the other rejected parts to make a new system in another case. Next, the old dual PSU setup was a good trick for getting a lot of watts on the cheap, but now that higher wattage PSUs are more affordable, they will be replaced with a single unit to save space. And finally, the massive block of hard drives I created in the last video will be modified and reused in the new system. For the motherboard, I grabbed the entry-level MSI 970A G43. With my old Areca RAID card hosting the big disk array, there was nothing very special I needed from the motherboard, and I had had good luck with MSI in the past. I decided to do the build after seeing the FX 8350 for $150 and grabbing it. Most people refer to the 9590 I used earlier as nothing more than an overclocked 8350, which made this a great deal. I didn't realize the 8350 came with a heatsink, but since I was hoping to overclock it as much as I could, I wouldn't be using it. Next up is the memory. While an upgrade was certainly welcome, considering the new board had 2 less slots available than the triple-channel 2011 board I had before, reusing the old 4GB modules and downgrading would have been unacceptable. So I picked up a few slightly faster 8GB sticks to bring the system up to 32GB of RAM. For the cooler, I opted to try another water cooling system, as they seemed to be doing well, and I ended up choosing the Seidon 120XL. The only good place to mount it, however, was in place of one of the old PSUs, and this single-width 120mm radiator was thicker than most, meaning it would give me the best cooling without having to make any major modifications to the case. A GTX 660 seemed to be the best bang for my buck for some additional CUDA acceleration, and a new 240GB SSD replaced the stuffed 120GB model before it, and a new 750-watt PSU powers it all. Before installing the new components, I needed to recut the back panel. The poorly made piece was a replacement made when upgrading to the dual PSU setup, which is no longer needed. After checking to make sure the Seidon's radiator will fit in place of the second PSU, I go about cutting the new piece. Instead of using acrylic like I had before, I'll be using aluminum to be stronger and easier to work with. And I'll start by using the old piece as a template. Then I mark new holes using the new components as guides and finish cutting. Some extra 90mm fans I had lying around should be good replacements for the overly loud Vantech Tornadoes I had before it. And with the only major changes to the case complete, I go about installing and wiring the rest of the components. And with everything ready to go, I boot up the system. And that is the point where everything started to go terribly, terribly wrong. It's been about 1 month now, probably a bit more than 1 month since that last shot that you saw. This was originally supposed to be a 2 to 3 day little project for me, or at least the system building part of it was supposed to be like a 1 to 2 day thing, and it just extended because of a number of problems. Very first of which would be with that motherboard, the MSI 970 G43. Again, that motherboard was kind of one of the cheapest ones I was willing to buy. There's a few brands I kind of won't touch. MSI was never one of them. I had one motherboard which was not a low-end board at all, and it worked great. And then there was a laptop that I had that worked great as well. So I had some experience with them. They seemed to be a fine company, but that motherboard was just kind of a piece of garbage. First off, it would not install Windows. It would just blue screen when I was trying to install Windows, and as I started researching that problem, which there didn't seem to be a solution for it, and it didn't seem to be a common problem, I think I just had a defective board. But I found out that it was just a really low quality board, that you pretty much couldn't overclock anything on it, and it just had a few other bugs. And this kind of confirmed my suspicion. One thing that I saw out of the box that I wasn't expecting, I actually thought I had a defective motherboard out of the box because I'd never seen this before. The MOSFETs didn't have any heatsink over them, but they had the holes kind of where they plug in, but there's just no heatsink there. And that seemed a bit strange to me. I'd never seen that before in a motherboard I've purchased, or at least noticed it before. It seems apparently like a normal thing on cheap end boards, but I thought it just kind of fell off before it was packaged. But no, it just doesn't come with one because that's how they saved some money on that board. But I decided, kind of reading everything that I was reading about it, to get rid of it and get something else. And at that point, I decided to bite the bullet and get this, which is an ASUS M5A99X Evo R2.0. And this was a much, much more expensive motherboard. But at this point, like I said, I was down for longer than I wanted to be and just kind of had to get it working. And it's working great. I loaded up Windows and everything worked fine out of the box. And that's when I found out problem number 2, which was that my RAID array, the RAID 10, which was a 6 drive, 1.5 terabyte drive, RAID 10, one drive failed, which is supposed to be fine with RAID 10, by the way, but as I started loading projects, I found out that the files were corrupted. It would render and it would have problems, and there were issues with the footage. It was clearly corrupted. And so since that happened, I decided to mess with the one part of the system I wasn't going to mess with, which was make the RAID array bigger and better. And so I decided to, instead of use the 6 drives in 6 1.5 terabyte drives in RAID 10, I upgraded it to 8 2 terabyte drives in RAID 10, partially to increase performance, partially to give me some more space, because at the same time I was also dealing with the Black Dwarf losing a hard drive, and I had to shuffle around a bunch of data. The operating system on the Black Dwarf, the SSD with that thing, also died at the same time. But that was kind of what I decided to do with the extra time, and since I had to redo it anyway. And then the scratch disk too, I took the 1.5 terabyte drives, and I used 3 of them this time, so I had a 3 drive RAID 0. Main reason there, not for the extra space. I didn't need really more space. That's more than big enough for my scratch disk. But I wanted the extra speed, and it is a lot faster now. So once I got finished with that problem, I realized somewhere between day 1 and day 4, audio on my motherboard stopped working. I rolled back drivers, I did everything you're supposed to. I tried new drivers from the web. I went and formatted that disk and started from scratch twice. The first time copying the exact same driver installation method I did the first time. I just could not recover the audio. Decided to RMA the board, got a new board back. That one had working audio, so the motherboard just decided to die in terms of its audio. So once that was working, I started thinking about overclocking, and I noticed a very strange thing as I started overclocking. Even with the mildest overclock, it would crash when I started stress testing it. And then I decided to run it stock again and stress test it, and it crashed. And it turns out that I measured with a kilowatt how many watts it was drawing, and it was drawing, when it was being stress tested, something like 850 of it's supposed to be a 750 watt PSU. It should draw a little bit more at its max, but it also shouldn't be reaching its max. So the 750 watt PSU turned out to be not sufficient for this system. Not quite sure why. Again, it was pretty perfect. It definitely had a little bit room to add, to use up more power on that other system, which was very, very similar to this one, the one with the 9590. Maybe it has about 5 extra physical disks, 3.5 inch hard disks, and then it has an additional, or the GPU is a little bit more powerful, and it uses a little bit, like 20 more watts or something like that. But not even close with that PSU. I ended up having to run to Fry's real quick and grabbing one of their kind of small selection of higher wattage PSUs, which was this, another brand that I hadn't heard of, a Lepa B1000M. But it worked great. It fixed the problem, and actually idling it used less power from this thing than the other one, so this one's more efficient. But it also allowed me to start overclocking it. And I am not the best overclocker in the world, I admit it. I find it to be a very kind of tedious and boring thing. But I was only able to get it up to 4.5 gigahertz, its stock is 4, before I started running into heat issues with the CPU. And part of that might be the cooler that's on it, not as good as the H100 that I had for the other 2 systems. I didn't have a convenient way to mount the H100 in this one. I sort of thought it would do a little bit better than that, though. I'm reading what other people are getting with even really great air coolers or comparable water coolers, and they were getting better than me. Maybe I'm worse than I thought at overclocking, but also maybe that's just I got a processor that kind of can only go that high, or maybe it's the cooler. This cooler is not that great at all. Got it up to 4.5, and it's stable at 4.5 and great at 4.5, but that also kind of goes to show you, again, I had a lot of people say, who on earth would buy the 9590? It's just an 8350. I sort of always disagree with that. I didn't think that would change with this build, but I think this sort of confirms the way I think, which is kind of overclocking is going to be icing on the cake. And I definitely don't recommend people who watch my guides to just count on an overclock. And if, I'm unsatisfied with it, so you need to be satisfied with what you're going to get stock, and then hopefully you can start overclocking it higher and higher. And again, sometimes you'll just get a processor that can go higher and a lot higher, and probably could have been a 9590, but also you might get one that can't quite reach there. And again, the 9590 was just working stock at the proper speed, and at this point I am overclocking a little bit. I'm waiting for an extra fan for that thing because it's also having an overheating problem with the motherboard. but I think I've gotten it to about 0.5 gigahertz higher as well on the 9590. So again, you can overclock these things definitely a little bit, but to say that the 8350 is the 9590 is a mistake, I think. But definitely still a great improvement overall. Everything else, I think that was it for my problems. I think everything else now is working. You can see I got some extra lights too. I decided, because everything was taking so long and I was tearing it apart over and over again, to upgrade the lights and make it look a little bit nicer. And just to tell you, the export, that 40-minute export, again, the 3930K was 2 hours and 37 minutes. The 9590 and the $1,300 build that this one was kind of modeled after is 4 hours and 37 minutes. And this one with the 8350 now stock is 4 hours and 7 minutes. So that's a little bit surprising. Maybe it's the GPU, I think, which is a little bit, the 760 on this one is a bit more powerful than the 670 in the other one. But also maybe a little bit of the disk drive, also maybe a little bit of the motherboard. But I'm also not, that's not the biggest difference in the world. I think that's a great improvement over what it was before, which was 6 hours and 43 minutes. And again, now that I have overclocked it, it is down to 3 hours and 24 minutes. So definitely a pretty good system. Render time seems really great, but most importantly, you can see I'm working on this project right now. And this is 4K footage from the GH4, which I can now play real time without dropping frames. And I can also play GoPro footage without dropping frames, and I can also scan through them pretty well, a lot better than before. And just the process of editing and the little waits, not the big render times, but the little, you know, every once in a while having to render a segment is just so much better. And really it's a system where it's appropriate kind of for what I'm doing. Actually, I think I probably should have gotten a 3930K, especially had I known I was gonna be down this long. I would have just gotten 3930K and known I would have gone up to about, I don't know, $1,600 at this point. But I think also it was definitely worth that money. And it's a much better experience working with it. So at this point, I really have to get to all the videos that have backed up over this time. And so that's gonna be the end of this video. And you can check the video info for the full specs of the system now. And that's gonna be it. Thanks for watching.